You're listening to Tech Me Seriously with Sarah Tenisi, CEO of TenisiTech. Candid conversations with driven technology and business professionals who've always got something interesting to say.
Hi, I'm Sarah Tenisi, the host of Tech Me Seriously and CEO and founder of TenisiTech, an IT services firm headquartered in California. Today, I'm speaking with Devin C. Hughes. Devin is a captivating speaker, author, and workplace culture expert. He helps leaders at all levels drive growth and engagement by aligning workplace culture with success. His unconventional and innovative views on business and leadership have attracted international attention. Devin's approach draws from the science of positive psychology, positive organizational research, appreciative inquiry, neuroscience, mindset, and mindfulness. Welcome, Devin.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm super excited to be here.
I am too. On this podcast, I've been focusing as much on leadership and kind of workplace culture as on technology over the last few years. And I've talked about kindness and how to develop a culture in which people thrive. And we were going to talk about kindness, but at the last minute, I thought, let's talk about something else that you often talk about. And so our topic today is finding gratitude at work, inoculating your brain against stress and anxiety. So what does that mean? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, so a couple things that come to mind. Number one, if you live on Earth, I think you might suggest there's a lot of heaviness going on. And so it's like my beloved mother used to say when I was a child, Sarah, you can't control the weather, but you can control how you show up in it. And there's a lot of bad weather now.
Yeah.
Right? Just a lot of stuff. Heaviness, Gaza, Ukraine, socioeconomic, political, just stuff. But the one common denominator, again, the analogous would be how I show up for the people that I care about. That's my family, my teams, all of the above.
Yeah.
So that said, the point of that is if I can get my brain in a better place more days, I can support the people that need it. In other words, you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Right.
And so inoculating your brain is essentially, I wasn't given the tools and resources when I was a young lad. You just weren't given it. But the science has caught up out of the last 35 years in the tenets of positive psychology that there's a new discipline called human flourishing, well-being. So that's the subtext of that.
Mm-hmm. It feels like no one talked about any of this stuff. We're about the same generation. And it feels as we move forward year to year, people are finally talking about this stuff. I don't know. It felt like there was a huge kind of upswing of talking about mindset and mindfulness and workplace culture after COVID. I don't know. Do you think that it is just changing generationally? You know, it's not punch a clock for 30 years, get a gold watch and walk away.
Yeah, I think it has. Every generation changes. And I think part of it was a stigma. Right? If you said that you were exhausted or burnt out or tired, we know it. Suck it up.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And we use that language, man up, put your big boy pants on.
Yep.
And so part of that, I grew up in that era. You didn't have feelings. Who cares about your feelings?
Yeah, right.
That was weak, right?
Yeah.
Right? So part of it was that. Part of it was this tribal norm that you had to pay your dues.
I'm totally guilty of the put your time in. We've all been through this. Pay your dues.
Yeah. So you go to a law firm, you got to work 80 hours. You work on Wall Street, you got to work on 80 hours. You work in a startup, you work in a tech company. Hey, it's going to be a grind here. That's what we do.
Going to be a grind.
Yeah. And then we brag about it, right? Oh, Sarah, you work hard. Yeah. Well, let me tell you, I don't even take PTO.
Okay, so I'm glad you said that because I've been socializing the conversation. I often will tell people what I'm talking about, on any given week. And I was talking to one of our employees about it, and I said to him, I'm gonna be asking Devin about what can employers do to help people inoculate their brain, but also I think this is as much focused on the individual, which is kind of fun. One of the things he said to me is, I feel like there's this culture of not like being expected to be on PTO, to take our PTO, which for me as like the business leader is tough because we have 5 weeks of PTO. We absolutely want people, right? And I don't think we're reminding people enough. Like maybe in our monthly all hands, we should be saying, hey, we really want you to take your time off. We want you to recharge. We want you to feel good. But I feel like we do a bunch of stuff, but it doesn't land for our team. And so I'm also kind of excited. We're going to get to this a little bit later in the podcast, but how can leaders sort of ingrain that in employees? Because I feel like we're doing this stuff, but people don't feel that way.
So the easiest way, and I'll tell you the easiest way I've seen, what leaders talk about is what matters.
Yeah.
So if you're going on PTO and the VPs are going on PTO and they're sharing pictures and stories, it clearly sets the context that that's what we do around here.
Yeah. We take time off to recharge.
Yeah, we don't, there's nothing to be shameful of. I'm excited. And PTO could be a home vacation. It could be with staycation. It can be whatever. So the easy fix is just to normalize talking about it. The other one is you also have to create boundaries, meaning if you do take PTO, but I'm still checking email and still connected, right? We've been there, you, me, and others.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right. And then
I didn't take a vacation without working like legitimately until maybe 8 years ago. I'm not even joking. Like I would work while my family was asleep and then I'd hang out with them. It was atrocious. I'm over that.
See, that's the thing that we did. I did the same thing. So I'd be in this like far away tropical place, getting up at 4 a.m. before everyone else got up.
Damn.
And this is what I normalize. I'm just going to get on email real quick because I don't want my inbox to get too much. And I'd crank out a couple hours and then a couple hours. And then my family would see me and I don't want to be not present. So I'd close the laptop, sneak back up there maybe kind of throughout the day from the pool and then maybe before dinner. And I did that the dance. And I'm like,
forever, right?
Yes. And you're not alone. We all have been there. And so I guess the point of that is, again, it's situational, contextual. But if you can, and if someone's taking PTO, then they're off the grid. We will find a back channel. We will find a way to fill in, but we normalize it. I don't want you half in. I want you all in on the PTO with your family. But those are the kind of conversations I think, to your point, we need to normalize and be more intentional about it. And then it's okay. Yeah.
It's okay for us to take time away. So I want to, we're going to go way more into that, but before we get there, I want to talk about like more about you. Like, how did this become your focus area, your area of focus and something that you're super passionate about?
I mean, a couple things. One, I don't know people's backstories, but I think that matters. I didn't come up with much. My family, neither parent went to college. Mm-hmm. So education was my way out. I played college basketball. And so I was trying to get out of my circumstances. So I had a mindset that I had to succeed because I just didn't want to stay where I was. I fast forward that. So my dad was in the military. And again, so I kind of understood culture and athletics and teams. And then intuitively, I figured out when I was with my people and I was in a better place, I performed better. Mm-hmm. Like I was a better human being. So I used to go, man, it's like a superpower. Like when I'm with my people, Sarah, and we're in that foxhole, it was just like a vibe. It's like, I don't know how we're going to figure it out, but we figured it out. And then I was in other cultures and it was like, feel right, no trust, right? And so I was like, okay, so I've been in good and bad. And so I went out in the workforce. I probably had 25 jobs, literally. I would just bounce around from job to job because you don't know what you don't know. And at the time that seemed like a lot, but it gave me a really good sample size on leadership styles, cultures, people, all of the above. And then so I landed on 2 industries, high tech and biotech, which were data-driven, fast-growing cultures, and bounced around a little bit, startup, big company, et cetera. And then my last company got acquired. And then I was like at an inflection point, fast forward. I was like, what do I want to do next? And I did a talk at a Rotary Club. I know this is a lot. And someone in the back came up to me and said, hey, you're unbelievable in front of the room. Have you ever thought about writing a book? No. And boom, it happened like that 15 years ago. And so I took the totality of all my experience and said, you know what, workplace culture plus science plus outcomes. And that's how my career started.
I love it. I feel so. I've read a couple of your books at this point because I like to do my research. And one of the things I feel like you're an observer. I feel like you are a good observer. So it's definitely not by accident that you end up here.
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't know if everyone's ever said that, but I do. I try to go in spaces as not the expert,
Yes. I mean, I don't know. I picked that up in reading. I don't know why.
yeah, and I'm just very curious about human behavior. See,
Mm-hmm.
my presumption always with anybody I meet is that we're all good people,
Same.
right? And but we all have different experiences, different life stories, different triggers, different traumas, different stuff. And so I'm
Yeah.
in spaces. I'm like, okay, wow, what can I learn? This is interesting. How can I connect? What do we have in common? Just looking and observing and put that all in context. And so, yeah, I mean, I think so. I just am fascinated with people.
So do you think, I mean, I'm also fascinated with the idea that this is something new that organizations care about and are talking about. Do you think you could have had this kind of job, I don't know, 25 years ago?
It would have been, no, probably not. It would have been too woo woo.
Exactly right. And what I think is so interesting about this is it was like, I tell this story about how we lived in San Jose for 25 years and I'm working in high tech, same thing. I just had my head down for all these years. And I'm telling you, COVID sort of snapped me out of it because it did, I think, allow a lot of us. And I know like people have been talking about this long before COVID, certainly, but it just felt like, I don't know, like I feel like people got refocused on some of the balance. And I think that's why it's something that I'm so curious about and that I really want like the team that I work with to feel like that their work can't be the only thing in their life. There's
Yeah.
got to be more.
Yeah. And so I love that. I would also put this in context. This is why I'm so passionate about the work. We spend more time at work in the aggregate hours
Right.
than we spend anywhere else. Now, you might have
sure.
heard me say this, but, again, I spend a lot of time. This is how my mind works. You look at the mortality tables. Most of us have 80 summers. Okay. Hopefully we have a lot more. Summers, that's not that much.
Nope.
And most of us, at least 40 of those are at work.
Ah.
So put that in context. 50% of our existence is at work. So why would I settle and lower the bar and give up 50% of my aggregate hours at a place with people that I can't be seen, heard, and valued?
Yes. But that's new though, that people have started to draw those boundaries. And, it's kind of interesting when you talked about this idea that nobody takes PTO and I've worked 24 hours in a row. And like those were the badges of like honor at work. And now I'll like coach my team, like don't send an email after 6 p.m. Like literally schedule the send. It's okay if you feel like you got to tap out the emails, but don't send it until the next day. Like I just don't want people think, and this is tough, right? We're in a services company. So it feels brave to say this, but I don't want people to think they can have our time when we should be with our families or with our hobbies or something else. Like, should that feel brave?
No, I mean, it is brave and it's a maverick. And to some people, again, so I love that because, and I'll touch on your other question. The core values on the website don't mean anything unless you live them. That's living them. So you can talk about all that stuff, but if you do not actually operationalize them, they're platitudes.
I used to think that's all corporate values were because I worked at big companies and they would send everybody like those little cards that you could like tape up on your cube or in your office, and it was the corporate values. I legitimately never heard anybody manage against them, talk about them, or live that saw them living those values at work. So when I started thinking about TenisiTech and what we were going to do in terms of core values, I kind of was like, what a joke. But the moment we figured out what our core values were going to be, we did a whole workshop on them and started talking about them, managing with them, treating each other the way that we talked about wanting to get treated. It got really clear on who we wanted to work with, and who we had on the team. And so it's so powerful if it's done right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And people will see through when it's not done right. And I don't want to skip over your question. So has it changed? And I think the world changes pretty quick, and we got 4 or 5 generations in the workforce, and some of the younger generations have more access to information than we had. So they see that there's choices, and they're well educated, and they don't have to settle. And if you don't create a work-life balance, again, I love what you said. I'm not going to go work for the man and work 32 years and get a ham and a watch and a cake, and then the person from the 4th floor to come down who I've never said hi to me and then clap for me on my way out. No anymore.
Right.
And
it
so
there was like this, okay, we're going to talk about gratitude, but it felt like there was a gratitude to have that type of stability.
yeah.
Like whenever I left a job, and I really haven't left that many in my time, my dad would be so stressed out for me because he worked in the same place for 30 years. And he was like, what do you mean you're going to leave a well-paid job? And I mean, oh my God, don't even get me started on the reaction when I said I'm starting my own company, because it felt so scary, right? And so I think that's totally different. Now people take mini retirements, right? Save a bunch of money and then go hang out for a few months because they don't want to get burned out.
Yeah. And again, and so in that context, so how do I put it? Well, one, there's a couple different things. One, less burnout, right? But at the end of the day, however you talk about it, if I can get your folks or anybody's team in a better place emotionally more days, they win.
That's right.
They win. So they better customer service, better engagement, better innovation. Ask engineers if you want to innovate, build a new product.
Yeah.
If I say to you, hey, we need to build a new, upgrade to this new software, you think we'd be better if we're negative, cynical, salty, pessimistic, and cutthroat? Or if we're, of course, dude, they're like, of course not. So intuitively, they know it. So I'm just putting some context around it and give them tools on how to operationalize it. And saying it's not woo-woo for woo-woo's sake. That's okay. But it also is going to drive outcomes, individual and collective.
That's why we want to do this. That's why we want.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So let's talk about this. So when we talk about inoculating your brain against stress and anxiety, let's start with the individual first. So I'm an employee, and I do like the focus on the individual too, because this would help them regardless of where they worked.
Yeah. So again, that's kind of what I was talking about before, is that a lot of us weren't given these tools.
Right.
Meaning you want to be happier. So, it's perks, parties, food trucks, et cetera. Happiness, if you look at the research, and let's just go back to the research, happiness is a choice. Meaning that you get to choose on your mindset how you wake up every single day. You can look for all the problems and challenges, or you can look for the blessings, however you frame it. Now, does that mean every day is a pep rally or Ferris Bueller's Day? No, some days are harder than others.
Yeah.
But there's certainly some tools like gratitude. And if you look at the research, if we're going to get real specific, the happiest people on the planet, they have happiness habits. And I call it, in my work, happiness hygiene. Just like you brush your teeth, you comb your hair, you do all the stuff you do. Well, you don't schedule it. It's not on your Outlook calendar. You've been doing it for so long, it's just right. I tell people, if you want to be in a better place and you want to inoculate your brain, you need to have the same happiness habits. Now, I'm not suggesting it takes 6 hours to climb Mount Everest, run mountains. No. I'm talking 3 to 15 minutes. What could you do every single day that's organic to you that puts you in a better place? I'll give you an example. I was just following some new research on music. Music's like candy to the brain. Fires off dopamine. Dopamine is when we win. So maybe it's you have 5-minute dance party or put your whatever. But what you do is you find micro moments every single day just to reboot. And from tech, right? Occasionally, whatever operating system you have, occasionally you get an upgrade. Most of us who aren't doing this stuff, there's nothing wrong with you. You just need a little bit of a mindfulness upgrade. And if we just find things that you can do 2 to 3 minutes a day, gratitude, meditation, exercise, music, whatever it is, and that's how you start to get on that path.
You wrote about being out in the sunshine. And that one resonates with me because maybe, 3 years ago, I thought about being outside more, and I made it like a New Year's resolution. And I read this stat, and I want to know, I think it's fun to have people guess this, but the average amount of time an American spends outside.
Ooh.
I know, this is mind blowing, and I can't give you a source. So maybe I'm just making.
Yeah. 25%.
15 minutes a day, which
Is
is
that it?
equivalent to people going back and forth from their car to a business, to a house, to whatever. And so I thought, okay, I got to get outside every day. I got to get out in the sunshine. And you read about that. And I think that's a really big one. And it's kind of a pet favorite of mine, or a redundant. It's a favorite of mine. And I keep telling my kids, I want you to just go sit outside, like go get the sun on your face. So that feels like a big one to me. An easy one and a big one.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's also so, and let's put it in the context of work. If you had people in an office, which a lot of people remote, again, you could do walking meetings.
Love that.
You can also do walking meetings when you're remote. Most people have AirPods. Hey, for this meeting, we're going to be very intentional. You're the leader. I want everybody outside, and I want you walking as we're talking.
I love that idea. The next TenisiTech All Hands is going to be a walking meeting.
It's hilarious. And you're hearing noises, but you will watch the vibe just because people will be, this is amazing. Yes, you're multitasking all day long. Let's just walk and talk. So little things like that is what I'm talking about in terms of operationalizing some of these things.
Yeah.
Then you're clearly telling people, we're not just talking about wellness at TenisiTech. No, I care. I want you to get in your 15, 30 minutes a day, and we're going to actually embed it right into the work.
That's the part that I was particularly interested in, is how can people start embedding it for their employees? Because I almost feel like it's a cycle, right? It's maybe a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you can do that for people at work, then maybe they start doing it for themselves. And it is this, like you said earlier, this normalization that, hey, we go on vacations. And I was thinking about this, we have a thread for that, like vacation photos, but it's still not landing. People are still really stressed out. Even when we're like, don't be stressed, no overtime. We have a no overtime policy. And not just because we don't want to spend the money on overtime, but because we don't believe you should be doing overtime on a regular basis.
Yeah. So I get it. I mean, I'm not close enough to the team, but different people have different, put it this way. There's also a lot of stigma and norms about how much to share, what not to share.
The tough one.
And then some people are like, well, say you go, let's just say one of the people on your team goes on these amazing vacations. And, I end up going to Temecula. Yeah. Then it's like, you know what I mean? Like, wow, I mean, do I really want to show all that like stuff starts, right? Like, okay,
that's interesting.
I've seen that. But like, well, I didn't go to Costa Rica, Sarah. So, my family, we just went to court. So then it gets this like, kind of like this narrative, like mine's not worthy of sharing. I've seen that. But one way to do it, again, I think on a local level, right? Again, before you go wide, because I get a lot of leaders say this. I'm like, look, don't try to boil the ocean. Boil a pot of water on your team, your customer service team, 6, 7 people that you manage. How about you start sharing in the meeting? How about you create space the first 10 minutes of the meeting and you put up pictures on the slide on Zoom or Teams or whatever you use and say, hey guys, before we get started, we're going to take a couple minutes and I just want everyone to come and share your best photo or something. But if it's not embedded into the work, it tends not to happen. And that's the secret sauce from a design thinking standpoint. Just think of all the work routines that happen right now. Meetings, one-on-ones, those are the things where you have to integrate it because that clearly shows people, oh, this is what we do here.
It's not just all business.
Yeah, it's just not all, because otherwise it just feels all transactional all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm already busy. And now you're asking me to do more stuff. See, I don't want you to do more stuff. I'm just asking you the stuff you were doing. We're going to give a little bit of a makeover like Chip and Joanna in Waco, Texas.
Chip and Joanna games.
Yes. I mean, right? They don't burn the house down. They just get a little bit of an upgrade. And that's what I tell leaders. Just a little bit of an upgrade. So I don't want to overtalk this, but I say this, how you start meetings and how you end meetings are really, really important. That's low-hanging fruit to integrate some of this stuff. Like, for example, I never want to leave bad news at the end of a meeting. I don't want people walking out like they got run over by an Amazon truck. Always.
I don't like talking about bad news at any of those all-staff meetings either.
Even on my team meetings, though, if we're in a heavy meeting and it's hard and we're not, this is hard and we got to do better, but I'm going to walk out that, you know what, we're going to walk out excited. So again, there's just nuances like that. I think you can integrate it into the work itself that make people feel more
What's a good
connected.
example of how to end a meeting so that it doesn't feel heavy?
I mean, one easy one is, that's a different course, but like even meeting management, right? Because you've ever had meetings that just go on and on. So one of the things we talk about is we're really clear what the meeting is for. Are we brainstorming? Are we coming to an action? Is there a pre-read? So that's a whole meeting management. But one easy way to do that to close out meetings is, what did you learn? And what are you going to do? What was the biggest takeaway? Or another one is, but before we get out of here, and I know we talked about a lot of heavy stuff today in customer service. Hey, if I had to ask you, what was your biggest success story this week? What's your biggest win? Well, often I don't think we talk about winning enough.
Or maybe they're not small enough wins. Do you think people think that a win has to be big?
Usually they think it has to be big, hairy, and audacious.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. I was watching basketball last night. NBA playoffs are on right now. Every time anybody made a great play, they got a fist bump or a high five or a smack on the butt.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so you tell me a guy makes $7 to $8 million, he gets a charge, he gets a rebound, why? Because it's a win. Winning, you know what I mean? And so I
think people talk about sports a lot because you can tell when a team has that vibe together, you can tell that they're going to succeed. And, we talked about this a little bit last week, but we're big Warriors fans and they seem like they are so with each other. Doesn't matter if you're coming off the bench or if you're one of the starters, they love each other. At least that's what I see. But that is part of it, right? Is we celebrate the little things.
No, I mean, that's culture with Steve Kerr, right? And it starts, right? It starts, and that's his vibe. And Steve Kerr, from what I read, is really into the whole gratitude space and then just bleeds into everyone else. And so it's fun. I don't want to talk about sports, but if I said to a group of people, do you think professional athletes play better when they feel better?
Of course.
Of course. Or how about, how about kids in a classroom?
Of course.
Of course.
The reason why I roll my eyes like that is because, getting ready in the morning is really stressful, right? And you have a 5-year-old that doesn't want to put on their shoes or whatever. And then I was like the mom that was yelling at her kids because I had to do an hour commute. And immediately after that, I would think, wow, I really set them up for success today.
Because,
you have to send people out into the world, with a good feeling, or else how are they going to do well in the day?
Yeah. And no, I mean, this is all good. I mean, this is great conversation. This is stuff that I didn't know and I learned later in life. I mean, I'll give you an example. Did you know that, human beings, all of us have a negativity bias. I mean, we're born with it, which means bad is stronger than good on the brain.
Yeah.
And some of that. So at first people are like, what do you mean? Well, think about it. The number one job of the brain is to keep you safe, keep you alive. News is a threat. So we're hardwired to always environments. We just have, you know what I mean? Like that. And so what does that mean for work and culture and people? If you look at the recent data, you need three positives to outweigh one negative.
That's tough.
Yeah. So it doesn't mean you walk around with a clipboard like, hey, Billy, I got one more today. But just think about it. If you just did your own sample research this week and looked about how many positive affirmations you've given out versus negative or neutral.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're not even negative, Sarah. You just don't give them out at all because we get busy. And so my point of it is, could we be, and I love what you said, it doesn't have to be big, hairy, and audacious, just micro moments. Oh my God, Sarah, I love what you said in the meeting yesterday. That was an unbelievable point. I didn't think about that. God, I love that. We're going to need more of that. I want you, make sure you follow up with me. That's all I'm talking about. These micro little affirmations, you're letting people know they're a big deal.
Yeah. I know. I'm sitting here thinking, what are we doing? What do we need to do more of? That idea that 3 positives outweigh 1 negative, or it takes 3 positives to balance out the negative. I'm glad to hear that that's science backed, because I do feel like I always have my guard up, or I work on it. I'm working on it. Right. But I remember we do these exercises on our leadership team where we make these commitments to each other. And one of my commitments had to be, I'm going to assume positive intent, which is weird because I feel like in my life I do, but there is this thing where this tendency to think that somebody's not happy or is mad at us or whatever. And I think that that's what you're getting at in that idea that we're sort of just programmed that way. I feel relieved.
Yeah, no, I get it. And see, I mean, most of us, me included, we're all hardwired based on experiences. So if someone says something or does something, our brain, just like a hard drive, spins 1,000 miles an hour and it finds a data point. It goes, oh, that's that. And then they fill in the narrative, the gap, and go, oh, so to your point, assuming positive intent is a really, really big one. It's interesting when you talk about that, right? Because if the relationship is really, really tight, we kind of sort of give the person, we always kind of assume positive intent. Billy would never talk to me like that. Mary didn't mean that.
True.
But if I don't have enough connective tissue to the person, I don't know them that well, I've never really spent much time with them, then you'll start to feel in that little bit of friction in the relationship. So, I mean, those are the things we talk about, in terms of that. And I don't want to make sure I skip what you said before. In terms of signaling that things like gratitude and all that stuff matters, again, you're working remotely, it's more challenging. But again, if you do team meetings or one-on-ones, those are ripe for a makeover.
Yeah.
Right? So how would you integrate some of this stuff? Maybe I've had some people right now, hey guys, before we get started here, maybe certain times of the year are more stressful. Maybe then the month is stressful. Maybe there's certain points for whatever. Maybe it's a new customer. Maybe you're onboarding. If you're a director, manager, whatever, and there's inflection points where the temperature goes up, then why wouldn't you get ahead of it and say, hey, you know what? Let's cause a pause here. I know this is heavy. We're going to just take 5 minutes. And I want everybody we're going to meditate or we're going to do something just to integrate what I'm talking about into the work. And it also sends the signals that I'm not tone deaf to the realities of what's going on.
That sort of brought to mind, onboarding is a perfect example of where things feel a little crazy because you're forming what's that saying that people say, you're forming, storming, norming, and
norming. Yeah.
Right. So whenever you onboard either a new employee or a new company as a client, like we finally realized that, wait a minute, this is just part of that forming and storming phase, right? So we talk about J curve of excitement or satisfaction, because usually like when people start with a new partner, like I'll use TenisiTech as an example, they're really excited. There's a lot of work that's going to get done and not all that work is going to be fun. So you go through that J curve of stress, whether it's a new project, and I think this applies to everyone really. And then you kind of get through that and you think, okay, now we're norming, right? Now it's all normal and we're performing. And I think that being able to say that out loud, because we've been in business a long time and I've been working in IT service management for decades. And it was like, you never talked about that it was going to be negative. But if you could call that out at the beginning, I feel like it's what you're saying. It's like, I'm not tone deaf. I get it. So let's not worry if we go through a rough patch. It doesn't mean that we're going to walk away from each other. It means that we're just getting there.
See, I love that. I mean, I love that. Let's just say it's gonna be the best. And again, I don't want to get off on these tangents, but the best people to do that are the military, because you put people in harm's way. So you say, look, this is going to be heavy and it's going to be hard and there's going to be some uncertainty, but we're built for this. We got a plan and we're going to figure it out and we're going to stop along the way. I think that level of candor is really important. Celebrate winning and progress is really important. Individual and aggregate progress. People can connect to that. And so again, I think that's part of that conversation. And then, I don't want to dance around a little bit, but you talked earlier about some of the stuff going on about just the heaviness in the world. I look at data points about why people are struggling. Well, I don't know if you've seen the new Gallup data. But roughly, according to Gallup, the state of work report, only 30% of the global workforce is engaged.
I mean, I'm not to get you off point, but I read an article in the Atlantic yesterday about the job market's in trouble. And we're trying to figure out, like, college isn't helping people as much as it used to. We both have college age kids and kids that are trying to figure it out, and people don't feel engaged at work, and AI is potentially impacting all this. It was scary to read about that stuff. And I mean, that kind of puts me in this spot where I feel like, okay, I got to just focus on the good. But then is it like I'm just hiding my head? So what are we supposed to do when that is the reality of what's going on in the world.
In terms of engagement or AI or just all of the above the market?
I mean, like you were saying, that Gallup data is pretty stark.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just follow the data. I mean, you could look at it sort of like, wow. Now, if you look at the lion's share of that, most people are, well, there's 3 buckets. There was engaged, not engaged, and actively disengaged.
Oh, yeah.
And so actively disengaged, I think we've all been there, where they're kind of toxic, disruptive.
Sure.
And so roughly about 20% of the workforce is that. Well, 50% of the workforce is not destructive. They're just not engaged. And that doesn't mean they're just in. So if work starts at 8, they get off at 5, and they do fine. But there's a lot more gas in that race car.
Yeah. Like they could be engaged and having a great time.
Yes, and they could be offering up new ideas and be more participatory. And so a lot of the folks are just kind of tapped out. So like, I'm here, feels very kind of meh. So again, that's one data point. Plus loneliness is at all-time highs. You talked about burnout. But when I look at why, just again, if you bear with me for a second, and you've talked about it, church attendance is down.
Yeah.
Volunteering is down. Family dinners are down. Having people over to the house is down. What do all those provide?
Connection.
Human
connection.
Plus, most people are remote at work or hybrid, and I'm not anti, but we don't gather.
Right.
And so as much as it affords us in certain ways, I think we've lost a sense of community and connection.
Yeah.
And when you do that, it feels very transactional.
And so a leader's, I think, responsibility at work is to kind of drive that meaning and connection. And actually, that's kind of what I was reading this morning. Like, there's this new study called the Global Flourishing Study. And again, I've just been reading The Atlantic. So, you guys, people could find these articles in there. But that's exactly what it said, is put your close relationships with your families and friends kind of first. Where possible, don't use social media to talk to your family and friends. Like, pick up the phone, go for a walk, go eat, break bread, right? Like something, don't put technology between those relationships. And it's funny to be a tech person and I really don't like social media at all. Like for the business, maybe, but like for my personal life and my interactions with people, I try not to. And so it is about this lack of connection, right?
Yeah. And so I get that a lot. Well, Devin, that's nice. I don't see people in the hallways anymore. I don't see people. Okay, great. I get it. Get people over the country, all over the West Coast. I get it. So,
yeah.
What do you do? When you do check in, do you ever check in just to check in? Or is it always about the work? How about just check in and, hey, Bill, no, forget the work, my man. Let's just talk.
Yeah.
What's going on? And again, I'm a devil in the details. Hey, last time we spoke, you mentioned that your daughter was trying to get into, Did you get in? How's that going? These are little subtleties that, again, we just take for granted. But again, you got 4 or 5 generations in the workforce. If you're not checking in, it's people signal that it doesn't matter.
Do organizations need to have like a coach like you come in to do this? Because I feel like I think it's hard to develop organically.
I'm a little biased, but
I know. I'm just saying, like, should people hire you, Devin? What's going on?
I mean, that is.
But like, part of me feels like it as a leader in a company, thinking, am I even equipped to do this, or do I need support in doing this? Really?
I mean, I think it's yes and. I think certainly you can do it. The challenge is, could you learn it? Yeah, but that would take you years, and that's not your domain expertise. You have a day job, right? So you mean well, you don't do well. Again, just like I know I should eat right and exercise. But that doesn't mean, so a couple of things I think a coach does help, like me, is that one, I get it. 2, I can give you bite-sized chunks to transform behavior. I'm not the academic who comes in and gives you a bunch of Venn diagrams in the real world. I don't have time for all that. You know what I mean? I give you real world tools, and these are tools that you can operationalize this week and then figure out where we want to go. The other thing is, I think I'll just say this, Sarah, each team's different. You might have a sales team, different vibe. engineering team, customer service team. The different managers got a different vibe. Introvert, extrovert, ambivert. I don't have a one-stop shop. I got to meet the manager where they are. Where do they want to go with the team? Do we need to put out some fires? Maybe. And where do we want to be aspirationally? Where do you want the team? And here's some tools around the culture to help build out what I'm talking about. And then, along the way, we do it in a way that's bite-sized chunks. But I want them to succeed. So, yeah.
So if people aren't focused on helping their team sort of avoid burnout and fostering an attitude of gratitude, what's like the worst that happens? You have any horror stories you could share?
Yeah, I mean, the Gallup data clearly shows, one, that people just check out. I mean, I have a lot of people burned out, stressed out, etc. Angry, salty, negative. I mean, when I hear language, oh my God, Billy's so negative and so toxic. In a lot of cases, it's not that Billy's whatever he is or Mary. We've just normalized it. One of the ones that I see the worst is two things I'll say. One is called performance punishment. And I coined that. What that means is, if Sarah, you and I are working on a team, right? And say there's a team of us of 7 or 8, and you probably have seen this in your career. Let's just assume that you and I always find a way to get the work done and other people don't. And our boss really needs something to get done. Who do you think he's going to give it to?
We're going to get it because we're mean. Yeah.
Well, I see that a lot. I call it performance punishment. So you'll burn your high performers out because I know that's
a lot in IT. I got to say,
it always happens in IT because you'll go to your money person because they
just are so good.
And so we unintentionally burn some of our best folks out. And then they're looking to the left or right. Mary's over here on ESPN or Facebook or like, why am I
chilling?
Right. So that's one horror story. I mean, the other one is in terms of just the level of just that you create in a culture where people are just like, whatever.
No, it makes me, I really don't want to have that kind of culture. Like when you say that, I'm like, I don't want that. My hair sort of lights on fire.
Yeah.
I don't think people want that to be their culture.
No, but most people really haven't had a really hard look at what their culture is. So I have a frame or a canvas that I use. I'm not overly prescriptive. I have some buckets that I use, or these are just buckets. Like, for example, psychological safety, behaviors, norms, unwritten rules, how we meetings, and just help people say, how do we rebuild the culture from the ground up, just like a house? And I was kidding when I used Chip and Joanna, but it is in some ways it's analogous. Mm-hmm. Right? We're not going to burn the house down. It's just the world's changing. And what are we going to do to just upgrade it? But to your point earlier, if the leader doesn't change their behavior, then nothing changes.
Yeah. And then, okay, so horror stories. So that point of you're going to burn out your highest performers, performance punishment, that's a big takeaway for me, at least. So on the other hand, if you focus on this stuff, what are the success stories? I mean, I assume happier customers, happier employees, like.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a success stories, but I think the one that I'm most proud about, honestly, is not even it's a work context, but not really. I'm doing more and more work in school districts now. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm not an educator, but I was working in a school district, one of the lowest performing school districts in the state, socioeconomically not well, kind of that, district where you're like, no.
You should move. Yeah.
Yes. All right, listen to this, knows that wherever you live and you have small kids, the primary, right?
Reason you buy or try to move. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. So this was the school district you didn't want to go to. So fast forward here, I had a very progressive superintendent said, we don't have budget. We don't have resources. We don't have affluence, but I can control or influence how my staff shows up. My bus drivers, my staff, my teachers, my paraprofessionals, my special ed. And so I say all that to tell you that the ACT scores went up. ACT went up from 17 to 22 in less than 2 years.
Wow.
Suspensions went down. Classroom incidents went down. Fooling around on the bus went down. Attendance in school went up. And the only difference was culture and climate.
I know it's so powerful, and I feel like people are still, I mean, I think it's catching on like we talked about, but I think that, if everybody started thinking about how do they show up in these environments, right? With, particularly working with children. I saw this video online, and it was like this principal that was like high-fiving everybody and hugging people and telling, just you could tell this guy was walking the halls to encourage the student body. And it was like, all schools should be like that. I thought, yes. Because if you start young and you teach people about mindset and kids about the choice to determine how they show up, like you could see how things, like we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
No, we wouldn't. You're right.
Just be there, right?
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And so, I tell people that the energy, the vibe you give off, the energy you bring into the room, we pick it up before you even say a word.
Yeah.
And again, you say, well, that's not fair. Okay. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And so, you don't need to be a Southern Baptist preacher or a motivational speaker, but put your phone away, say good morning, hello, friendly, all that connected stuff to the brain. It matters because we are social animals and we know that, but we want to have connection with people. And just doing that more intentionally is a really big deal.
So Devin, I feel like you've given at least me a lot to think about. And I think, my big takeaway is to find ways to drive connection and meaning through little things at work will help improve the team culture. And so I really appreciate you coming to chat with me about this stuff. And I'm hoping that people get some value out of being nicer people at work.
Yeah. And so I got a challenge for you.
Oh,
because
challenges here. Okay.
Because I know that the short time I've known you, mediocrity is not part of the playbook for you. You didn't come this far to come this far.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
now I'm nervous.
No. So we don't want to talk. That's like my mama used to say, don't talk about it, be about it. Here's the challenge. I want you to start a 30-day gratitude challenge with your leadership team.
I love it.
All right. And you're going to start, I don't know, today, tomorrow, and you're going to give them a little bit of context and say, hey, you know what? We're going to have that for the month of May. Because, by the way, May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
May is my favorite month, by the way. So,
okay. So you could frame it around mental health awareness or not. But say, starting today, for the next 30 days, I want all of us, including me, we're going to find one thing that we're grateful for. It can be personal or professional, and then you're going to be very intentional, and then you could share it, not share it, but I want you to, again, just a signal to everybody. And that's 30 different things you're grateful for in the month of May.
I love it. Okay. I'm up for that challenge. I'm up for that.
And then when you have team meetings or one-on-ones, I want you to bring it up. Hey, by the way, it's day 8. How we doing? What's going on? It would just be interesting for you to hear people socializing gratitude. And it's going to take the conversations into places like, oh my God, I didn't even know you did that.
I know what you're doing to me. You're trying to, what is interesting about this is because, I've been reading about keeping a gratitude journal, and that was in one of your books about really focusing on those few things a day to kind of build this. And so the challenge is helpful because now I might actually do it and actually take steps to put it into play. So this is exciting, and I'll be sure to tell you how that works out for the team in 30 days.
Yeah. Well, do I have time to share with you one more thing on a personal level?
Absolutely.
Something that I do on a personal level with my family is I have in my phone, on my notes section, I have it titled, Good Things Are Always Happening to Me. That's the title. And I purposely find something every day that's good personally. And I just make a note. Just a little thing. Again, these are micro moments.
That's that good things, negative things that we were talking about, positive and negative things. And the example that always comes to my mind is if somebody goes, oh, wow, you look really nice today. And I know we're not even supposed to say that to each other anymore. You don't even believe them anymore. You're much more in your head about how you feel about yourself than, what other people are saying to you. You got to hear it a lot. So I like this idea. Good things are happening. Keep a list of those good things.
And what happens is, you'll start to scan for them after a while if you get in the habit, and you'll start to just make a little bit of a note. Lastly, I'll say this. I don't even say to people anymore, and it's not anything PC about, hey, you look really nice today. You know what I say? God, you look so happy today.
Nice. That's even better. That is a better way to say it.
You know what I mean? And you'll watch people go, oh, I do? But God, you look so happy. I love it. You're making me feel good.
Everybody's always heard this one. You look tired.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
You look exhausted.
Yeah.
Is something wrong? Well, that's
Yeah.
okay. How about you look happy and I love it. So either way, those are a couple things to think about.
I love it. Well, thanks so much, Devin. This has been super fun. I knew it would be.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It went by really, really fast. It was a great conversation.
Awesome. We'll do it again.
All right.